So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Because it's never been easier now to get a jailbreakable PlayStation 5. Thanks to a lot of updates that have happened throughout the year. Currently, we can jailbreak the PS5 up to firmware 10.01. That is the current state of jailbreaking the PS5 right now. And we can jailbreak it using the YouTube application or the Netflix application, which is great, and there is also a kernel exploit. The poop exploit or net control exploit. That should be compatible up to firmware 12.0 on the PS5. But we don't have a userland exploit that we can use to actually trigger that kernel exploit jailbreak yet, and we don't have KStuff support for it yet. So TLDR, it basically means we don't have a jailbreak up to 12.0 but we likely will in the near future, sometime probably in 2026. So if you don't mind waiting a little longer, and you want to get a console that will be jailbreakable in the near future, you could also try and get a console that is at least or on lower. But if you want to jailbreak immediately, as soon as you get the console, then you're looking for one that's going to be on 10.0 firmware or lower. What matters is the firmware version that the console is running. So we're looking for a console on firmware 10.01 or lower. Now, the big benefit with recent developments is that now digital edition consoles are fair game. Previously, digital edition consoles were not recommended because we had to use a game disc or a Blu-ray disc to jailbreak with previous jailbreaks. And digital edition consoles did not have a disc drive, so they could not run the jailbreak. That is not the case anymore. Because we can jailbreak using the Netflix application and the YouTube application. And those applications, of course, can be used on digital edition or disc edition consoles. So now you can jailbreak a digital edition console. So it doesn't matter if you go for a disc or edition. Digital edition console, you will be able to jailbreak it if it's 10.0 firmware or below. So the other big benefit here is that any fat model PS5 that is new in box and not pre-owned, because pre-owned systems, the previous owner could have likely updated it to a higher firmware, and then it's not jailbreakable. But if you can find one of the original fat models that is new in box, then it's guaranteed to be on 10.0 or below, because they discontinued these fat model consoles before 10.0. One even launched, so any one of these fat models, no matter which revision of fat model it is, it will be jailbreakable if it's new in box. And that the easiest way to guarantee that you get a jailbreakable console is to get one of the original fat model consoles instead of a Slim or a Pro. That would be my personal recommendation. That's the easiest option here. But if you're dead set on getting a PS5 Slim or a Pro, there are some options that we can use to try and make sure that we get a jailbreakable console with the PS5 Slims again. Digital or disc edition does not matter in this case. There are two revisions of the Slim consoles at the moment. There is CFI-0 models, and then we have the CFI-1 models. Those models are the ones that are not going to be jailbreakable. So if the model number on the box is CFI-DASH1, it's not going to be on a firmware 10.0 one or lower. It will be on a higher firmware and not immediately jailbreakable. So you want to avoid those models at all costs. Now you can find the model number on the box in the bottom right-hand corner. It's also on the top and on the side. And even in the little square cut out at the bottom of the box, you will find that model number. So make sure it's not a CFI-1 model that you're ordering, as it will not be jailbreakable. Whereas you do have the CFI-0 models. Those are the older Slim models, and those ones are. Some of them are jailbreakable. Not all of them, unfortunately, because they were still producing these models after 10.0. One came out, but you at least have a higher chance of getting a console that is going to be on a jailbreakable firmware. If it's a CFI-0 model. Now, in order to help narrow it down, to try and make sure that you definitely get a Slim console that is 10.0 or below, well, then you can look at the bundle deals. So you have these specific bundles where you had the console and a game included. And those are the consoles that have the box art of the game on the actual console. Box itself, these are the bundles that we're talking about. Like the Spider-Man 2 bundle and the Modern Warfare 3 bundle. So the thing with these bundles is that they are limited run only. So particularly with games that are not ongoing games. So I wouldn't recommend this for live service games. like things like Fortnite, because they continue to produce those bundles. But if it's like a single-player game that came out on a set date, then they only run those bundles for a few months, a couple of months, and then they stop producing those bundles. And then they start producing a new for the next big game release that comes out next. And of course, yearly game releases like sports games and Call of Duty, those bundles, they also only run for a few months. So if you find one of these bundles like the Modern Warfare 3 for example, bundle, you can just look up when did that game come out. And if that game came out before or around mid-2024, I would say either mid-2020 for like June or July or sometime before then you can get that bundle. And it will be more or less guaranteed to be a jailbreakable firmware because, of course, 10.01, the firmware that came out after that was 10.20, and it didn't come out until October of 2024. So you're looking for a console that was manufactured at least a month or so before then. And with the bundles, they do run the bundles for a few months. So therefore, just to be safe, you probably only want to get a game that was around mid-2024 or before then, and then it will be on a jailbreakable firmware. So you can just look up when did that game come out. That's bundled with the console. And if that game launched sometime mid-2024 or before then you know it's old enough that that bundle is likely going to be on a jailbreakable firmware. 10.01 or below, and then you can go ahead and get that console. Now, one word of warning though with these bundle deals. This is something that happens in the UK. I cannot speak to other markets. If this is something that goes on globally, but I've noticed that sometimes when retailers run out of stock of the official bundle, they might continue to sell that bundle, but they're not actually shipping the original bundle. Instead, they just give you a separate, standalone PS5 with a separate copy of the game included. That is basically what they do. And they still sell it as the original bundle, when it's actually not the original bundle that they're selling. So you have to watch out for that. Normally, retailers now will say things like box art may differ, or they may say things like game and console may come separately. So make sure you check to make sure that that is not the case before ordering one of these bundles, so that you do not effectively end up with them. A newer console that is bundled with a separate copy of the game, which is not what you want. So now it's the same situation with the PS5 Pros. So the PS5 Pros have the older revisions, which are the CF-70 models. And then you also have the new revisions, which are the CF-i7-1 models. The 7.1 models are not going to be on a jailbreakable firmware. They're going to be higher than 10.01. And the 7 o'clock models, a lot of them will be below 10.01. But some of them will likely still be above 10.01 as well. So it's still a risk just getting a 7 o'clock model. But you definitely don't want to get a 7. Model if you're trying to get a PS5 Pro. So there is one other thing that you can do besides the bundle method to make sure that you get a jailbreakable console, and that is looking at the serial number of the console. Now, the serial number is usually on the bottom of the console itself, but if you're buying a console in the European market, it actually gives you the serial number on the console box itself. So you don't even have to open up the box and get the console out to be able to tell when it was manufactured. To make sure it's on a jailbreakable firmware. If you're not buying in the European market, you can still just, import a console from the European market. You'll have to pay extra for shipping and whatnot. At least you can guarantee yourself a console that is going to be jailbreakable. And of course, if you're buying in a physical store, you can actually just pick up the box and look to determine if it's going to be on a jailbreakable firmware. And if you're buying online, you can just ask the seller to give you a picture of the serial number. It's on the little square cut out that's on the bottom of the box. You will see that serial number. It's usually like S0, and then you have the full serial right there. So basically, you can see in this example, we have a serial number. We have F333. So the first digit after the dash, the F, that's not important. Next one is the console revision. Also not really important here. The number after that is the year that the console was manufactured. So 3 in this case is 2023. If it's manufactured in 2021, 2022, or 2023, it's guaranteed to be on a jailbreakable firmware 10.0 or below now if it's 2.0 to 5. Then do not go for that, because that's going to be on a firmware higher than 10.01. So do not go for it if it is 2025. If that number is 5, if the number is for 2024, then you need to find out what month the console was manufactured in. 2024, and that is the next digit along is the month. SO for example. If we look at this serial number here for this PS5 Pro CF-70 to 1, You can see here we have 4 and 8. So 4 means 2024, of course. But then you have the next number along, which is 8, which represents the month. So the month is a hexadecimal number going from 1 being January, right the way through to C being December. So 1 through 9 is January through to September. And then A is October, B is November, and C is December. So basically, you're just looking for one that is 4, 9 or below, so in this case, this is a 4-8, which means it was manufactured in August of 2024. That would be fine, that would be on 10.0 because the next update that came out after 10.20 came out in October. So you should be safe to get any console that was manufactured up to September of 2020 for October is one I would not recommend. That's why it's highlighted yellow, because some of the consoles manufactured in October, like early October, will likely be on 10.0. One or below ones manufactured later on October could be shipped with 10.20 on it instead, which is obviously not recommended. And then, of course, you also have B for November and C for December. Those are red. You do not want to get a console that is for B or for C, because that means it is manufactured after 10.20 came out. So it will not be likely to be on a jailbreakable firmware. So that's the general situation there with the serial number. That is what I would recommend. So if you find a console that's going to be on 10.01 you can try and get a console that's at least going to be on 12.0 or below, because that's likely to be the next jailbreak will be up to 12.0, which will probably come out at some point in 2026. We just need a userland exploit for it, and that will likely come in the form of a Blu-ray exploit. So if you are trying to get a console that's going to be on 12.0 or lower to be able to jailbreak it in the near future, then you should go for a disc edition console. In this particular case, it might not require a disc drive, but it is looking quite likely. So it's best to just get a disc edition console on 12.0 or below, if that's what you're looking for. And you just need to get a console that was manufactured before October of 2025. So September 2025 or before then should be on 12.0 or lower. So that's something that you can consider. It's the same situation. You can use the serial number to determine the date. Or, of course, you can get a bundle. Now, when it comes to the model numbers, you should be good to get any PS5 Slim 0 or PS5 Pro 7.0 model. And it should be on 12.0 or lower, They were discontinuing those models right when 12.0 came out. So there is still a small chance that you could still end up getting a 2 o'clock or 7 o'clock model that might be on 12.02. So just to be safe, I would still recommend a bundle method or the serial number method to guarantee a console on 12.0 or below. And I should also mention that this model number method does not really apply to Asian consoles, because consoles in the Asian market do seem to have a different model numbering system than we do in other countries. So therefore, those model numbers are quite a bit different. So that's why you might see a strange model number if it is an Asian console compared to consoles that you buy in other markets. You may have to wait many months before we have a proper jailbreak up to firmware 12.0. So if you can get one on 10.01 that is or lower, definitely recommended, because then you'll be able to jailbreak it as soon as you get the console. So anyway, that's the updated buyer's guide on how to get a console on a jailbreakable firmware. As always, a little shout out to the channel McCook or MCKU. See, who has done a lot of work in determining the serial numbers with this console and informed me about the whole serial number method. In the first place, he even goes into more detail on the serial determine numbers if it was manufactured earlier in the month or later in the month, which can make up the difference of it being on 10.0 or 10.20, so go ahead and check his channel. I'll leave it linked down in the video description. But anyway, that's gonna do it for this one. So hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information